out of the Popol Vuh of the Quiche Maya, which were bird Nephilim. They had an
Bird
owl or a
Nephilim.
raven face, but we can get into that too.
Yeah.
Different kinds of Nephilim. And the Zabalba one, they had sort of owl, but typically they're described as falcon, raven, or eagle faced. And there's one branch that's called the House of Camazotz of the Zabalba. And that is translated as the House of Bat. And if you
How
Google
convenient.
Camazotz, Camzotz, you're going to get up an imagery of this Batman outfit. I kid
How
you not. And the Anunnaki has wings and these big stocky legs and these massive feet. And some of them are depicted with a human's head and look like Gilgamesh would look.
hmm
Others have an eagle head
Eagle.
on the
Okay.
reliefs. So if you go back to what we talked about earlier, was there a type of watcher that had a man's face and an eagle's face? A cherubim did. It also had a lion's head and a bull's head. So when they took a form in the physical world, they didn't generally show up with four faces. They would pick one head in a physical body. So now if they produce as an eagle face or a bird face giant, then you would produce giants that look just like them. In this case, the Zilbaba and the Camazotz. Now, in Southeast Asia, in China, in India, in Malaysia, and in Japan, you have these Tengu gods. They're similar and related to the dragon creator gods, but distinct. And these are Anunnaki looking like gods. And that, just as, let's say, Horus is a falcon headed god, right?
hmm
And there's a couple other bird faced gods in the Egyptian pantheon as well. While all of these and all of those countries and accounts I'm talking about produced Tengu offspring as warrior kings and as priests for their Eastern religions. And you can Google Tengu, Tengu, and you'll bring up, and I got a great document on these guys. And I have pictures of all of these on the Facebook publish one that I do, and they're just absolutely crazy looking, but it starts to bring that imagery to use. So now a cherubim also has a lion's face. Well, lo and behold, we have the lion men of Moab and the lion-like men of Gad. And one of the kings of the four kings from Mesopotamia is Arioch, which means lion-like. And
Hmm.
they're associated with the word Gibberim as they show up. They might be called mighty ones, wilderness men. And you take that back to Hebrew, it's Gibber and Gibberim for the description of the Nephilim. And you also have ones before the flood, like the Urmalu that were in Sumerian mythology. For the lion ones, you get similar ones on Egyptian reliefs as well. There's a god in the Bible that's called Nergal. He's a very famous Sumerian Mesopotamian war god. And he is a lion-headed god. And we actually have him as one of the gods of the Avim, which are one of the tribes of giants. A god named Nibaz,
Nebas. Hmm.
Nibaz. And that, when you take it back to Hebrew, is a barking god. And it was depicted as a wolf or a dog in an image and was known as the barking god. Now, you've got another god in the Egyptian pantheon named Anubis, who's
hmm
a jackal god. And he created, oh, and this Nebaz was also one of the gods of the Avim that they were worshiping. But Anubis created offspring in great numbers. And this goes in with the cynocephaly sort of mythos, the dogmen mythos. So, and it connects with the city that these dog Nephilim lived in called Sinoopolis. I kid you not. And I have a great three-part document on the dogmen. So these dogmen, they weren't small. So when Pliny the Elder is talking about them, for example, in History 6, 194 and 195, you have a 12-foot dog Nephilim. And, so they're generally larger. They're usually not generally thought of as large as Nephilim or Rephaim were, but some accounts show that there actually were. Now, these dogmen are talked about by more than just one historian. And they're talked about in North Africa, they're talked about in India, they're talked about in Chinese history. So, in Hesiod's account, they're the offspring of Hemicernes as one of the gods, and Herodotus talks about the Marmatae or the Berbers in North Africa of Libya. You've got Pliny, who I've just talked about. So they were actually listed as 8 cubits tall in Pliny. And if you use, I don't think they're royal as in 21. I think these are typically dog Nephilim were mercenaries, right? Just as Caleb was a mercenary and his name goes back to dog in the Bible. Another interesting coincidence, but I'm not saying he was a dog Nephilim. I'm just saying that's what the name means. But he was 8 cubits tall, which would make him 12 feet. But if you did it on a royal cubit, he'd be closer to 14 feet tall. So Cestius has them in India, and he wrote a book. Marco Polo wrote about the dogmen in his writings of traveling to in the time of the Khan dynasty, the Mongol dynasty. And there was actually a race of them that lived on an island as well as in the mountains of India, but an island off the coast of Japan as well. So, and you get these dog mythos imagery coming through the age of the church, right? So St. Christopher is associated as being a Canaanite in some accounts and a mercenary from North Africa where these dogmen come. Now, you don't get that in the Roman church that he's a dogman, but you move that over to the Eastern Orthodox that split in 1000 AD, and he's depicted as a dogman. And then in the Eastern Orthodox, there is a sort of a prayer or blessing that's done, and it's talking about the Jews and the Gentiles and the Indians and the barbarians and the Scythians and the Greeks, then the cruel savage, and then the fearsome dog-headed giants out of the Eastern Orthodox religion.
So you just have all that, and then it's like, oh yeah, and the dog-headed giants. It's
yeah,
like,
and the dog-headed giants.
no, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's in Prayer 93 of St. Gregory Nereg's Book of Lamentations to the Oriental Orthodox prayer thread. The 3 common traits are the dark-haired, pale skin like Gilgamesh, which seem to be more likely have been to produce by cherubim with the human face as opposed to the lion face or the eagle face. And then you have the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and the red hair, hazel-eyed ones that also show up in the giant tribes in the land of Israel. So the Horim, which are part of the Hivim and the Hurim, as part of the nomenclature of these giants, they had red hair, hazel eyes, pale skin, and the word hor goes back to pale bread, words like that, hori. And the Anakim, so though the Horim also produced Horites as a hybrid breed, they also intermarried with the Edomites. And so you had Timnah, a Horim, marrying Eliphaz to produce the Amalekites, which would have been a hybrid. Now, what they looked like, probably a mix of, dark hair and red hair, but you would think it would run through. But the Anakim were the blonde hair, pale skin, and blue-eyed ones who they fathered the hybrid Amorites who are depicted in the same way, just smaller than the Anakim.